Okay, thank you. Excellent. Good evening. Call this meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission Subcommittee on Subdivision Regulations Draft Review to order. It is Wednesday, March 22nd, 2023 at 7 p.m. and we are here on Zoom. We will move on to a roll call. Mr. Hill.
Melvin Hill, present.
Mr. Blackmer.
Randy Blackmer, present.
Mr. Popowski.
Dave Popowski, present.
Mr. Rice.
John Rice, present.
Mr. Lenke.
John B. Linky, present.
Mr. Santos.
Rice Santos present.
And I think Ms. Salsi. She may be connecting still.
Yeah, she's not connected to audio yet.
Okay. Okay, Ms. Salsi.
Good.
Hi, Jen, can you hear me?
Jane, if you are speaking, we can't hear you. I can see that your mic is not muted, though.
How about now?
Yep.
Excellent. Yeah, we got you now, Jane.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and so we will move on to item 3.
Yeah, Ray's having trouble too.
I was just gonna tell Mr. Chair that problem. He's having a problem downloading.
Yep. Okay.
Okay, thanks. Here, just keep an eye out that he'll be probably trying to get in.
Yep, I will do so. All right, I'm going to go to screen share.
Was that?
I said I'm going to screen share.
Okay, they know. Okay, catch you later.
He's talking to Ray. Okay. So what I am going to do is go to, oops. Actually, let me stop share for a second. I'm going to go to simple markup instead of markup all because it's so chaotic to look at. Much better. All right, now I will screen share. Okay, everybody got that?
Yep.
Yes.
And
Yep.
everybody received the discussion guide last week, right?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so I am optimistic that we can get through this fairly quickly. So first of all, can we just agree in general principle that aside from the highlighted items, which are substantive, tomorrow I can just go through the rest of the draft and accept the language and grammar and formatting inline changes and just take care of them?
Sounds right.
Okay.
Yeah, do you need a motion for that, Tara, or are you good?
No, no, just consensus. That's just what we've
Right.
done before. I just want it in the record on the minutes here. It's a subcommittee or working group, so technically you can't really make motions anyway. Okay, so definitions, you'll all see I called certain items to your attention. Most of them are specifically Marla's request. And then for both applicant and developer, I have added this one sentence to clarify why we would use one term versus the other. The applicant becomes the developer after the Mylars are filed. In other words, once the application process is complete. And that's why we would use one term versus the other.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, we had that was a conversation we had back and forth in this group, and I think that clarifies it nicely.
Okay. And again, going back to Marla's suggestions, and I don't think we need to look at these. I think some of them we've actually looked at in the past, but I included them all in the discussion memo. I have included verbatim Marla's suggestions for Connecticut Erosion and Sediment Control Guidelines, Connecticut Stormwater Quality Manual, CT-DOT Drainage Manual, CT-DOT Form 18, CT-DOT Highway Design Manual, engineer the and land surveyor, the. Before we got started, Alvin mentioned that he did not think that the article, in other words, that you, including the, was necessary in these two items. And I understand his point. I actually think that we do need them though, because that would differentiate the engineer attached to the project from any other engineer, but open to discussion on the inclusion of the article.
Yeah, I mean, I see both points. I think if the engineer as a term is used with a very specific definition in the body of the document, then it should be maintained.
I think in the engineering tier, in definitions, it works just fine. I was
Okay.
really referring to the body of the
Oh, okay,
regulations.
all right. I get that. So then that point is less relevant than it was here. Okay, so then the other decisions to make here are late in the process, Marla suggested adding two more. We can add them or not. I will say that I don't think they are particularly necessary because I don't think there's anything contextual that makes either of these terms unclear. But due diligence, since they have been suggested, I could add the following definitions as you guys wish or not. Tax exempt organization and town council. So tax exempt organization, I'm suggesting a definition, a nonprofit organization organized under the laws of the United States of America or any state thereof, that is an organization described in section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code, is exempt from federal income taxes under section 501A of the Internal Revenue Code and is not a private foundation within the meaning of section 509A of the Internal Revenue Code or corresponding provisions of federal income tax laws from time to time in effect. And just so you know, I typed that from a legal dictionary, so I did not make that up.
Tara, are we supposed to be seeing that on the screen now?
No, that's just on the memo. I just have the actual text itself, and I don't believe I added it. because-
Okay.
Thank you, John, because I was just going to ask the same question. I couldn't
No.
see it.
Yeah,
I know
that,
I know I read it on your memo, but I didn't know. Okay.
I mean, if you want me to go back and pull up the memo so you can see it in front of you on the screen, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, that would work for me, Tara, please.
Yep, hang on one
Yep.
second.
One more note, Tara.
Yep,
I like your description, but say on the end, I said something about amendments. They can amend these sections at any time, both state and federal.
I think that's what that from time to time in effect is meant to capture, but hold on one second. Let me pull it up. I'm gonna stop share here. Figure out what I did with it.
Tara, why did she want us to define tax exempt?
Beats me.
It makes no sense. I
And I-
don't even know why we're,
Yeah,
We refer to tax exempt organizations as entities that can have open space dedicated to them, like land trusts. And that was her suggestion. But this is why I didn't go right ahead and add them. I do not think personally, I do not think there is anything unclear as to what a tax exempt organization is that would need a specific definition.
I totally agree. I mean, It's
Marla takes a much more detail-oriented approach to these things, and generally I concur with her. This one to me feels a little bit like suspenders and a belt, but
well, and to like, I'm like, so a quick search of the regulations document does not turn up the term tax exempt organization.
it doesn't at all.
I mean, again, just doing a quick control F earlier. If we refer to it as something else,
I did the same thing, Joe. I couldn't
so
find it anywhere.
yeah, so if it's not in there, then I don't.
So in some respect, we must refer to organizations which are tax exempt. If they're not phrased this way, I don't know what to tell you, because they should be. But again, I think this is suspenders and a belt. If the commission believes that there is something unclear in what a tax exempt organization is, I will add it.
Okay, I'm
feel
sorry, you
sick-
know what? The distinction was that it's tax hyphen exempt. in the
Oh, my
document.
God.
So that's why I didn't find it. Sorry.
Well, let's do this for the moment.
You could always shorten the language too in that. Just cite section 501c3 in the internal code.
Like,
It just cite those sections and that's it.
like cutting it off here.
That makes sense, Alvin. I mean, I kind of agree with that. Just cite that section.
Like so?
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
Or
fine.
as described in section.
Yeah.
We know it's a nonprofit. I mean, we should know it.
yeah, that makes it a lot simpler. If they don't understand it, then they can look it up.
Right.
Okay. And then similarly, town council, Marla requested that we define town council, which,
Now, that one's short enough, you can leave it.
okay, I'm happy either way. If you guys want me
Yeah,
to,
it's short enough and that, just leave it.
all right, I'm okay. with it.
I don't mind that one.
All right, so we can move on from that one. I'm gonna go back to the draft. All right, so the next thing I have is page 20 and 21. My page numbers, oh yes, there's the page numbers showing. Okay, so, and this is in Article 3, Section 2B, items number, oh, am I in the right spot?
17 through 18.
There we go. And these, again, at Marla's specific request, but these I very much concur with. We had not previously referred to maintenance agreements for shared drive. Here comes Ray for the record. Maintenance agreements for shared drives or the owners association documents. So that's what these are. So it moves it into the application requirement section. So it's articulated right at the beginning of the process. Yeah, Jane, I see your hand up.
It's not on the screen.
I can't, I'm having trouble seeing, can you bring that up? I had a terrible problem getting on tonight. I went in a way that I'm not used to, so I'm not really seeing anything. Can you bring that section up so I can see it, please?
Yep. I mean,
Yeah.
it was showing us.
There, thank you, yeah.
Okay, you can see it now. Good. Okay.
Yeah, it did just, I don't like this format for me. Whatever I did something wrong. So I'll have to fix it before the next one.
It's probably not you, Jane. It's
Thank
probably
you.
just.
God, no, I
connecting.
am so not computer literate. No. Thank you.
Okay. Everybody else have this though? I can make it a little bigger too. I think I can make it a little bigger. Maybe I can't. So just again, for the record, I'll read it. Number 17 is a new addition. For any subdivision containing one or more private streets, the applicant shall provide a document containing the proposed language for the establishment of the owners association for the maintenance and liability agreement that is proposed to be filed on the land records and reviewed by town's legal counsel. Requirements for owners associations are found in Article 3, Section 3H, which is actually now G of these regulations. And then 18, for any subdivision containing one or more shared driveways, the applicant shall provide a document containing the proposed language for maintenance and liability to be placed on the deeds for any proposed lots with shared driveways in accordance with Connecticut General Statutes, Section 42 through 47F. A template for such declaration is included in these regulations as Appendix C. And we'll get to that in order at the end. Any objections there? That seemed like a logical request to me.
Yeah, and I think, again, it was something we had batted about in this group earlier. So I'm glad to see it happen.
I'm just wondering, when it said and reviewed by the town's legal counsel, is the applicant going to be waiting for a response from the town's legal counsel, or I'm just,
I have the same question. Why do they have to get it reviewed by the town's legal counsel?
Well, I think particularly in the case of owners associations, it is in the town's interest to make sure that the document is protective of those new homeowners, because, you know, going back to some of the objections that we've heard over, you know, why private streets or shared driveways have been problematic in the past, there has not been a framework that
yeah.
buyers
I'm
could hang
not-
their hats on and feel confident that that all the needs were going to be met.
Yeah, but we're dictating what they have to do within an owners association, which really, for me, is not our responsibility.
I'm not so sure that that's right, Jane. I don't think we're
Yeah.
dictating anything. In the previous meeting, I added the sentence about indemnification and removing their rights to seek legal grounds against the town if the shared drive or development was approved by planning and zoning. I just want to make sure that there's clarity to this, that we're just reviewing it as kind of like a record document. And in the previous meeting, there was all kinds of stipulations that were outlined in, I'm drawing a blank here, somebody else can help me here. They kind of gave the rules and regulations about how to develop such a document.
I know exactly where you're talking about, Brian, and while we go in order, I'll pause there. What I have right now, because what the commission said at that time was it was too prescriptive. So I have it as a place marker in the document, struck through but not yet deleted, because I want to be sure before I present this to the public that our actual town council now doesn't think, you know what, you really need to have these kinds of provisions in there.
So
So
I
that's
think
just a placeholder.
I think for me, at this particular moment, where it says proposed to be filed on the land records and reviewed, and then put in parentheses, not approved by the town's legal counsel.
Can you repeat that
Yeah.
again, Brian, please?
All I'm saying here is, I'll just make it more brief. I just want whoever's establishing this thing to know that we're going to review the document, but we're not going to approve it.
That makes sense.
It's-
Okay, okay, yeah, we're gonna review it, but we are not the ones that approve it.
Yeah, that's why I want to add in that. Go ahead, John, sorry.
But I still think it has to go to legal, especially when you're looking at a third, proposed language and maintenance and liability. Is that, I don't know, I'm not qualified to determine that the language in that
Yeah,
is
Yeah.
liable, no.
that's John,
The
that's, I'm not saying
liability
we're,
covers and the maintenance covers.
yeah, no, I'm not saying
Yeah.
that we're not sending it to legal. That's why I'm saying. that
Oh,
proposed
okay,
to be
but I
filed
thought
on-
Jane was indicating that.
No, I'm just saying in liability agreement that's proposed to be filed on the land records and reviewed, but in parentheses, put not approved in
Yeah.
the parentheses by the town's legal counsel. So we're still
Okay.
gonna review it, but we're not the ultimate approver of it.
Right,
Brian, that owners association, I can't imagine the state of Connecticut not having some definition in their statutes. And what I will do tomorrow is I'll research statute to see if there's any language for owners association on private roads in
Yeah.
Connecticut.
I'm sure.
Well, what Rich did do for me, and it's what is currently included as Appendix C, is he did send a template for a maintenance agreement, which is a much simpler document for the shared drives. What I can tell you from my experience, having actually been a condo manager in my last place. The association for the 6 homeowners who were the association of this one attached townhome piece property. Our counsel was actually my real estate lawyer, who's one of my good friends. And I seem to remember having not a discussion exactly like this because I wasn't writing regulations. But he had indicated to me that those documents are very customized. So if I understand Alvin's point, which I think I do, he's suggesting that any developer who's developing one of these with an attorney of his own, that attorney is going to be bound by whatever the statutory guidelines are. And there are some specific statutes we reference in here for the Condominium Act or Shared Property Act or whatever it is.
Yeah, that was my thought, Tira.
Right.
And
So
I agree with that. That's why I was kind of pointing back to our previous meeting where we were pointing to some statute that kind of gave the description or the guidelines of, well, I should make it more clear, legal guidelines of how to develop such a document. And then a lawyer would need to be engaged who's bound by that legality. So
let me just
anyway.
scroll ahead a little bit because we might be talking about something that we've already addressed. Hold on one second. Oh. Oops. Yeah. This is so jumpy. Oh yeah. Common property within a subdivision shall be owned, administered, and maintained by an owners association pursuant to the Connecticut Common Interest Ownership Act, sections blah, sections blah.
Yeah. this is what I remember.
Excellent,
But you didn't
excellent.
strike this. This still remains?
No, what we struck was under number
three.
3.
Yeah. Which, that was just a whole bunch of mumbo jumbo. Yeah, no, that's
Right,
that's
right.
fine.
And that was what everybody thought was too prescriptive. So right now it's just 1, 2,
Okay.
3.
Okay, all right. So I like this, and I like if we just add, like I suggested, not approved by or
Yep.
whatever.
And right now that
I'm-
is
I'm
in
good
there.
with that.
Yeah,
Very good.
that's in parentheses.
And obviously Rich is going to look at all this stuff.
Yeah, as long as he's okay with the way that's out, I'm sure it could be done a better way, but yeah.
All right. So that's where we left off.
Here, I just had a quick question. So something that goes to town council like that, is there a fee? Can we attach a fee to that?
We
required?
can recover, we should be able to recover any fees from the applicant for anything that any charges that we accrue towards an application.
I think that should be considered then.
Yes. Applicant or owners.
Yep. Yeah, it's justified.
I'm just
Yeah,
wondering
because
at
we
what
don't want to foot
magnitude
that,
that's.
we don't want to foot that bill. If the applicant has to do it, he's got to foot the bill.
I'm just
yeah, they would
wondering
be-
at what level of review in payment are they going to do, right? I'm just getting a little nervous about that because they're gonna say, well, what do you want me to review? And then we're gonna say, yeah, review the whole document. And at that particular junction, they may approve the damn thing. Or I was trying to remove that possibility by saying not approving it. It's kind of like just shooting a shot across the bow by any other lawyer and whoever's developing this document to say, hey, yeah, the town's legal counsel is also going to look at this. So make sure you do a damn good job. I just don't know. I guess my point is, Dave, I don't know how to really set a fee structure for something like this. If the document could be pretty big.
Yeah. And that's the thing, Brian, I get concerned that, we're requiring it, which I think is just, but because they're benefiting from creating this sort of a subdivision, right? It's a benefit to them. Well, why should the town be encumbered by any review? I agree. I don't know how is it charged, but I think that it's a recoverable fee for a town council to review that, be it 1 page or be it 10 pages, because in the end, it's gonna be filed and it's gonna be, I know we don't physically approve it, but the town council is gonna approve it. I mean, if the town council's not approving it, why would we send it to them? Right?
I'm almost tempted to say association for the maintenance and liability agreement that is proposed to be filed on the land records, period. And remove the whole thing about and review not approved by the town's legal counsel. That will remove the fee thing. And we're already dictating later on what statute they need to follow that has to be legally done and legally bound. So,
I do agree.
and I'm also in the other sentences that I
So you-
added that one sentence, if they don't do it right and we approve it, the town's not liable. I've already removed our indemnification and they waived their rights as the applicant.
Yeah.
So your preference would be for me to remove this section that I've,
I think so. I mean, because I don't know what fee structure, what we would be doing. And at that particular junction, we're approving the document, right?
Yeah.
And which is the whole point I'm trying to avoid.
all
Yeah,
right,
I
this
I
is
see that
another
we
one
have
that I'm gonna put
exposure.
in temporary strike through based on Rich's insight, I think.
Yeah.
If,
It's like,
if we, once this is done once, everybody should have to follow the same regulation. So we shouldn't have to, every subdivision, as long as it's done in the same manner, we shouldn't have to go to the attorney for each one individually. I
That's if they,
wouldn't think
if they give
anyway.
the same, if they fill out the same form the same way, Ray, it might be,
But
one
if we
guy
have
might be,
that form and they have to, if they fill the form out and it's, there should be every development should be the same form.
yeah, well, the thing for me is I don't know enough. Go scroll down again, T, for me, where it's outlines those whatever those statutes are.
Yeah, because I'd like, I mean, it's there, the statutes are there.
Yeah, I know,
It's
but
like
this,
we're doing it twice.
I know, but just to answer Ray here. I'm not going to pretend that I know pursuant to Connecticut Common Interest Ownership Act sections 47 to 200 through 49 to 299, so on and so forth. I'm sure out of all those hundreds of pages, each lawyer probably has a different method on how they approach what we're talking about here, right? And I can only imagine that there probably is. And I don't want the town to be liable to have to review each one of those things. We're relying on their lawyer to do the work, to follow these things because they're legally bound to. And in our document here, I added that we're indemnified and they waive their rights against anything that they screw up on that. And that's it. But I still suggest that Rich take a look at it.
Yeah, no,
I agree. Oh, I'm sorry, good.
no, I was just gonna say that, yeah, I agree with Brian's train of thought there.
And I do too. I think it opens up to us to expose, there's exposure there. If we have to start reviewing and, with town council, there's exposure that by some means we're accepting it because we're reviewing it.
That is correct. That's my
Okay.
logic as well.
Yes, when you phrase it that way, Dave, that makes more sense to me now. Okay, I have it in strike through. I will specifically call Rich's attention to it. And, just make sure we're not missing a trick.
Yeah, and call out those statutes that that are mentioned down below, Tira, because he can reference those and I think he goes full circle and covers us.
Yeah,
Okay.
and just make sure he knows about that sentence about their waiving their rights to wherever that is listed. I think it's in the same section below.
I think that stuff's actually in the, unless I am mistaken, I think that the language, that stuff that will be private in perpetuity is actually in the sections on private roads and
Okay.
shared drives themselves,
Okay,
as I recall.
okay.
So, all right. So moving on. And then-
Tara,
yeah.
just one sec. But to David's point, I think every time we send something to be reviewed by legal, it's costing the town. And I think David's trying to recoup that money. If we're gonna send it to legal to approve something, he's gonna charge us. He doesn't do that for nothing.
Yeah, sure. That's why we struck that, John. We're trying to strike that. right now on the screen.
The review by
Not
council.
review, it just ends
Right,
with that
so-
they're gonna file with the land records, period. and the
Okay.
rest of it was
All
just-
right,
So let me just finish this thought that I was starting on before I put that in strike through. To accommodate for that, I was just adding this sentence, any fees associated with review by town council shall be at the cost of the applicant. We have every right to pass those fees on. So I will leave both of those.
Tiara, I'm
things-
just thinking, was there other sections, maybe, that's great there, but does it apply in other locations that, we've been going through this for a couple of years now.
So somewhere in, and I will be honest, because it wasn't top of mind, either in this document or in the zoning regulations or both, there are places where it says the commission may seek advice from blah, and it lists all these agencies. And I know in at least
Right.
one of those sections, it says any costs so associated, are
Okay,
the responsibility of the applicant. Uh,
perfect. I thought it
But I
did.
couldn't tell you off the top of my head exactly where that is.
yeah. It used to be
I
in
just didn't know if
there.
it should be a disclaimer, an overall intent, somewhere within the document, not called out in specific sections, just maybe in definitions or not definitions, but,
It may be in section 1 of this document where certain authorities and whatever are set up. Again, off the top of my head, I'm not sure. I
Yep.
believe that it is in this document because I have recently been rereading this document looking for language errors. So it is sort of sticking out to me.
Okay.
I will double check again tomorrow, but in the interest of time, unless we really feel like we need to ferret that out.
No, not at all.
Okay. All right, so subdivision plan requirements now. I called this out to you guys. Just to say, it's more or less what we had previously agreed. There are a few specific changes. One being moving, and it got all wonky formatted here, but the requirement here under number 14, which refers to the Inland Wetlands Commission signing off. There was no signature block example shown before, as there was for planning and zoning. And Marla had preferred it to be constructed this way. I was fine with that. Under C, record subdivision map. Previously, there was text here that referred to the Mylars, but in the application process, the Mylars don't become relevant until after the approval. So I took it away from the preparation of the document and moved it under filing and recording. So that's near the end of this section. But what I want to take at least a little time here is making sure that we haven't missed anything when I condensed and combined D and E, which previously were titled site development plans and construction plans. And Marla kept asking a series of questions, not in her paper memos, but at the office, and we were looking at it together. And what it appeared to be to both of us was that in the existing subdivision regulations, in other words, not our draft, the ones that are currently in effect, both of those things get referred to and have little sections dedicated to them, which makes them appear like they may be different documents. But in reality, they were highly repetitive of one another and appear to all refer to the same thing. I'm not super surprised to discover that in the previous edition, things were referred to in different spots under different names with slightly contradictory facts. did anybody have a chance to look at this to get a sense of whether that appears to be the case? I feel very strongly that it is. That site development plans and detail sheets covers what was previously called site development plans and construction plans.
I'll help you out. It sounds similar, though I didn't do the comparison, T, but I gotta say, it sounds like it should be the same.
Yeah, I mean, it's an easy comparison, so
Yeah, sure.
I will agree with Brian. I did not have the time to pour through it either. But I'm sure with a simple comparison, you could tell the difference.
Yeah, I mean, I
will say this
I
looks
took
like
quite a
low.
bit of time on it, and I do feel pretty confident.
I mean, if it's the same verbiage that I'm looking at on the screen, this is pretty low hanging fruit for construction and, you know, details around development. So I feel like it probably is.
Because there were places where like contours were referred to, but in two different ways, but they were really the same.
Yeah, I'm sure that it was. I'm sure that they were very similar or repeated.
I don't see, oh, yeah. So 16, top of frame, invert slope and size of all pipes, ditches, utility conduits, culverts, manholes, catch basins, head walls. I guess that captures,
Oh, and look at this. Here's a repeat that I didn't even catch. Oh, and I just detailed drawings of any bridges, box culverts, deep manholes, and other special structures.
no,
Culverts, manholes, I mean, there's one I even missed. Unless we think that that 16 and 19 are substantively different from one another.
well, one's saying detailed drawings, one's just saying,
Okay, yeah, fair. And that is a more limited list. Okay.
I'm just, is this all inclusive? No. Do we need something that, like that?
I will remind, before you go too far down
Yeah.
your train of thought, that when we even created these, it was based on specific input from Janet. She looked at the existing, pared it way down, identified the 3 documents, and then somehow we still ended up with the 4, which was the site development plans and construction plans, which was another thing that led me to believe they should have been condensed. She had identified 3 and we had 4.
Yeah, no, I think it's a detailed list. Is that, obviously I'm in the business. The first thing I'm looking for is telephone poles. 16 says utility conduits, doesn't show telephone poles. So are there things that are possibly missing? I would say. So I'm just wondering, do we, is there some sort of a disclaimer that goes on this and says, including attributes that are not necessarily covered in this section, but are intended to be placed, you guys gotta help me with that.
Yeah, usually at the beginning of the document, it would say, like at the very beginning, where we start this yellow, this list is not all inclusive, but is not limited to, or something along those lines.
Well, I think this is supposed to be describing what absolutely 100% should be there in every case.
Yeah.
Right.
To your point, would exist, I'm sorry, can you go down to 15, Tara? Like, I know it's a specific and you're talking about a broader point. Does existing and proposed utilities, does that cover telephone poles?
Yeah.
So like that gets to your specific point, but not to necessarily your broader point. Like,
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing with these type of things, it's much easier to follow if it's like larger categories, like you could say soil, and then you could have contour lines and anything related to soil. And then there's another category called utilities, and then you write down all those things, right? When you're just writing sentences like this, it just becomes a mess.
It's almost when you're granular, when
Yeah.
you're granular, you have to stay consistent, and if you're not including it, it leaves it open to
Yeah,
interpretation.
yeah.
That's my point, It does look very detailed, is there something missing? There could be. I guess Marla could tell us. She's probably the most familiar with.
Well, I think the one who is actually most familiar is Janet, which is why we passed this up to her. Like, what would you reasonably be expecting to put on this plan?
Yeah.
Here is a thought that has occurred to me is that, you guys are actually really good at reading these things. I mean, you haven't seen subdivisions so much as individual site plans, at reading these things when you get them. And if something flags you as hinky, you have come up and said, hey, I don't see this. Before we approve this, I want to see this. You have every right to do that, and you've done it in the past.
That's true. Yep.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point here. And I think to your original question about, combining what were those two sections to one, I think that is accurate. And I mean, I feel fairly confident with this section D as we've got it.
I would agree, Joe. I think this, you did the comparison, and we don't have to.
I have a question. What's the difference between a deep manhole and a regular manhole, when it comes to the construction?
I was kind of wondering that myself, Ray, and I will say something really off color did occur to me, but.
Yeah, I don't look at them as two.
We consider them, if you got to use a ladder to get,
Yeah.
to get your feet into the bottom, it's deep.
I would just say, we could definitely cross out one of them, to get rid of, a little bit of the spaghetti in there.
Maybe it's if you need a ladder to get out there.
Well, actually, but before you do that, Tira, like, I think that's what I do think is it's like, right, 16 and 19 was where you had just said, a couple minutes ago, oh, look, like there's layout, there's repetition there. And then we said, no, it's different. And so I do think there is a distinction between manholes and deep manholes between what we're asking for in 16 and 19. Right, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah. The effective piece there is detailed drawings of special structures. And you're including some examples of things that could be a special structure. It's not exhaustive.
Right.
So if anything, you would get rid of all that interior text, detailed drawings of any special structures. But then, I mean, is it clear what a special structure, what qualifies as a special structure? I don't know. To a real developer, probably, but.
Right, it's like 19 specifies box culverts instead of 16, which is all culverts. So I mean, I don't, to Ray's question, I don't know what this, obviously the difference is. Sounds like a ladder is the answer, but there does seem to be some sort of meaningful distinction between manholes and deep manholes.
I think you brought up a good point here. We have the ability during considering the application. I do like the condensing of both into one. So it is, I would say we'd leave it as one. That's my opinion. You can, ask the floor.
Yep, I'm good with this right up too. I think it could be organized a little bit better, but it's okay. I think it does the job.
Okay.
But what a manhole is 2 to 3 feet deep. And a deep manhole is greater than 5 feet.
There you go.
What
Thanks,
if it's
Jamie.
only 4 feet?
Yeah, I want to
Yeah,
give,
yeah, exactly. And, midway manhole.
Well, if you're vertically challenged, it could be, a regular manhole could become a deep manhole for you too.
But for me,
There
it
you
would
go.
be. For me, it would be.
Yeah, let us not go further down this manhole,
Thank
gentlemen.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
bum.
All right, subsection G is the next thing, and it's just calling your attention to something I moved. Again, the logic that was brought up is we were referring to as-built plans in the application process. How can you have an as-built plan in the application process? It hasn't been built
It's
yet.
not built.
So I spent quite a bit of time the other day trying to figure out where it belongs. So let me just see if you guys agree with this in principle. I relocated it way down in the draft to section 8 bonding after release of surety, right? Because that's the point at which you're acknowledging how it's been constructed, right?
Yes, it would be, the as-built would be done before the release of the bond. Just so we have it.
All right, so we
If that's
will,
what you, if that's what you just said, it sounded like you said afterwards, but
well, it's in that section, in the
Yeah.
section referring to release of surety,
Yep.
number 3.
yeah, that's it. That's in the appropriate section.
Okay,
Sounds like it.
yeah, okay. Good. I like it when the logic that I think I'm applying turns out to be right. Okay, and then we've already looked at the owners association stuff, and similarly with the other section, I have this in strike through just to run it by Rich. Everybody has said that we think this is excessive. I'm fine with that. I just want to be sure that council agrees. So that's that. Let's see. So now we're going to Article 4, Section 2. I have us going to L, but I actually I think there was something else in here I missed. Let me just find it. Interior lots. This sentence is different than what you have in the draft, and I think I did this after I sent the discussion memo out. What this says here, it as currently drafted, is for the purpose, something like for the purposes of these regulations, lots arranged along a shared driveway shall not be considered interior lots. Somebody, either Marla or Janet, brought up a logical flaw in that it could have then enabled you as an unintended consequence to just keep sharing driveways and not calling them interior lots, even though we've otherwise said we have limits. So this is the alternate construction that I am suggesting, and I think it does resolve the problem. So I'll read the whole number 1. Interior lots, also commonly known as flag lots, shall have the same minimum lot size required in the underlying district and shall meet all the other requirements of the paragraphs above. The access right-of-way shall not be included in the calculation of the lot size for an interior lot. Up to 3 interior lots may share the frontage of a single shared driveway. However, no additional lots shall be permitted to stack behind the initial 3 lots. I think that is what we were actually trying to say all that time.
I think you're right.
And then I added this second phrase under D. As you currently have it in your draft, it says no interior lot shall be to the rear of another interior lot, period. But here, for clarification, except as provided above for interior lots with shared driveway frontage. I think that solves those logical problems, but I wanted to call it to your attention. Is everybody-
Sounds
everybody
good to
with
me.
that?
I like what you've done, Tira.
All right, so now on to what you did have the highlighted text for, which is L2, shared drives.
Tara, just 1 second, going back to that.
Yeah.
This how would that apply if if it was an interior lot and the person wanted to build a in-law?
So if it's an in-law apart, like an accessory dwelling unit,
Yes,
they have no obligation to subdivide. So if it's a granny pod on a property with a master house, let's say,
yeah,
they can share or not share utilities. We would presume they would share the driveway in that case because it's a single lot. I mean, you know, you could have a little spur off it, right? I have 2 driveways in my house.
yeah,
So it's not a separate lot in that case.
okay. Yeah,
I mean, if somebody did it as a separate lot, you're back to these rules.
that's right. I just wanted to make sure it was covered, but yeah, I see the point. Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
That would have to be connected to the original dwelling anyway, wouldn't it?
I would hope so.
Okay, that,
You mean the physically connected, the structures?
Yes.
correct.
Uh,
Yeah, you
no.
can't do an in-law apartment and build a second structure on the property. It'd have to be a certain percentage of the structure that you already have. I think that's actually in our building codes.
No, you can put, if you can fit, well, Tara, you know better than me, but I think we can. I think you
Yes,
can.
you can. You can have up to 2. You
Yeah,
can have up to 2 freestanding structures to use as accessory dwelling units.
As long as it meets the setbacks and NDDH approves the septic in the well system, you're good to go.
that's
Correct.
right.
Right. So it could tie in to the same septic, or it could have a separate septic. That's up to NDDH. But you can have up to 2 on one lot as long as it meets all the other requirements.
And that's what I wasn't clear on, that it is the same lot. So I just wanted to make sure we didn't have exposure with the way this was worded, knowing that there is an ability to have an in-law secondary unit within your lot. So,
That's right. There is. Any individual residential lot can have up to 2. Right? That was the preference of this commission.
Yeah.
Before the state even passed the legislation.
Yeah,
Yep.
that was in our planning and zoning. That's in our regs now. This
Yes,
is
correct.
it's totally different.
Okay, so if they do that, then they should have to use the same driveway to get in there. You shouldn't, because then you could end up having 4,
Right, if
4
it-
separate driveways.
If it's the same lot, Ray, I would agree. Yes, that has to be the same. I mean, you can have a little spur off the same driveway, but yes, they are using the same driveway to get into one lot.
Right, that's what I was, at first it sounded like, when Dave said that you could have an extra driveway going in. Or, so that'd make 4 driveways on a shared driveway instead of 3.
Right. Not only that, Ray, what that just reminded me of is it is already specifically articulated in the zoning regulations that units that share a lot, an undivided lot, shall share a driveway, whether they're
Okay.
residential or business,
Mhm.
for that very purpose. So that's already covered entirely in the zoning regulations. If they're all on a common lot, they have a common drive.
Tara, what happens to the buildings if the in-laws pass?
Well,
Yeah,
we use the
they're
term
deceased.
in, we use the term in-law apartment just because we understand it as a term of art, but there is no requirement that that be held for family. That
So
was,
it
stricken
becomes a rental unit.
could be a rental unit, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, where were we now? Going down to L2 shared drives.
thank you for clarifying that, Tara, though. I appreciate it. No, thank you.
No, I'm just trying to see if I scrolled past what I wanted.
I thought you were going back up because I started.
Here we go. This is what I was looking for. This is it. So letter E. Janet was the first one to call this out. As currently constructed, it is how you see it here. We're limiting 3 residential units or 3 units in a residential, lots in a residential subdivision. And then, to encourage responsible business development, how I had originally phrased this was limits on the number of lots sharing a driveway are not imposed for business/commercial subdivisions or for mixed use subdivisions. Oh, yes, I've already changed it here. But somebody brought up the point, and it might have been Janet herself, that in that proposal she brought forward where they had a single store proposed in a residential, that was a mixed use subdivision, so they could have had infinite shared driveways, and that was not the point. So my alteration is as you see it here. Limits on the number of lots sharing a driveway are not imposed for business commercial subdivisions, as previously, or for lots designated for business/commercial uses in mixed use subdivisions, which I believe solves the logical puzzle. Do you agree?
I thought in the last meeting of the meeting before, we had talked about not doing shared driveways for commercial based on.
No, we
need to be-
talked about something else, and we'll get to that.
Okay,
No, because the standards that the physical standards we described were all based on residential. And then somewhere else, we were referring to the manual 818. And I will thank Marla for this. She found the correct citation. It's not the form 818. It's this, the Highway Design Manual, section 11.8 driveways. And then they also have a section, and this, I gotta move this, hold on. So what it currently says here, and this is where we landed last time. In a business/commercial or mixed-use subdivision, any shared driveway shall be designed to road standards as set forth within Appendix C of these regulations. The applicable road classification shall be determined by the commission according to the proposed end use.
that was it.
Yeah. But this is what I'm suggesting instead as being more logical. In a commercial or mixed-use subdivision, shared driveways shall conform to the standards described for minor commercial or major commercial driveways as applicable in the CTDOT Highways Design Manual, section 11-8 or 11.8. I don't know which one it is. So
Tira, in our definitions, we point to Connecticut DOT Form 818.
we do, and I think that this is why. So it's possible that we won't even need that reference to 818.
Okay,
I'll double check that.
we may want to strike that 818 under definitions.
I'll just make sure it's not elsewhere in the document, but I think you're right, Alvin. I think it was just for this. Okay, so let me see if I had anything else here. I don't think
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, Tara. I agree with your reasoning for E.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's referring to the actual thing we're trying to govern, which is a commercial driveway. So I'll go ahead and make that change. Okay, now.
Can you go back up to the one before that with I saw our lawyer is reviewing something again. Scroll up. Right there. So a template for maintenance and liability agreement. It says here the form, right? The sentence before, the form of such owners.
Oh, yeah, I see where you are.
Shall be reviewed by town council again.
So you just want me to take out,
Can we just change shall to may? And then if we have a question, we have the opening to take it to them.
well, what I'll do based on what we did with the other is highlight it. Put it in strike through.
Yep.
Because what you just said a few minutes ago is we don't want to be saddled with the responsibility of,
That's correct.
or liability.
right,
That's correct.
right. So again, I'll just quickly run that by Rich and say, here's another place. And if he says we need it in the one place, we'll need it in both. I mean, because it's essentially the same.
My only complication is now we are giving them the template for the maintenance and liability agreement in Appendix C, where before we were telling them to follow the guidelines by the state statutes.
No, two different documents, B.
Yeah, I
So-
understand that. I understand.
This is just for the simpler one.
I understand. I
Okay,
just don't know what legal ground the Appendix C document will have in a court of law. We're gonna give them something. And they could say, well, the town gave me Appendix C. Why isn't this a binding agreement?
once they sign it, it is a binding agreement. It's a maintenance and liability agreement.
Okay, maybe I'm throwing this off. I don't know what Appendix C really looks like. I'm just looking at it from a pure word.
We're gonna get there.
Okie dokie. I will be patient. I'm really sorry. Okay, thank you.
We're going in order. It's in the appendices. Okay, so all joking aside. So here is something I did today. I did call our attention to this stuff on street trees. I had some suggestions from Janet. I had some suggestions from Marla. I seem to remember that Jane was very uncomfortable with some of the stuff around street trees. I went back and looked at it today, tried to answer some of Marla's questions. I'm going to read what we have. And then I'm going to pull up what I wrote today, and you tell me which version you like better. What we have right now under street trees. The commission may require that street trees be planted 40 to 50 feet apart on any side of the street where sidewalks are installed, subject to variations made necessary by driveways, utilities, street corners, and walkways. Trees shall be located within 10 feet of the edge of the pavement. Trees shall not obstruct sight lines at exits and intersections when at full growth. 2, trees to be planted shall be of 3-inch caliper or larger, shall be planted, protected, and maintained using good horticultural practices, and shall have a minimum height of 10 feet at planting. Such trees shall be guaranteed for 1 season's growth and shall be replaced by the developer if any should die during this period. 3, tree plantings shall be taprooted species native to the region with a maximum mature height of 25 feet. Information regarding acceptable tree species is included as Appendix E. 4, where the trees may interfere with underground utilities, utility poles, or overhead wires, the commission may waive the location of any individual trees. And 5, existing trees along the proposed street which conform to these requirements may be substituted for new trees at the discretion of the commission. Where any existing street trees have aged to the point of deteriorating, new street trees shall be planted in between the existing trees, and it may be required to trim the existing trees to permit growth of the new trees. That is as currently constructed. What I went back and did today is here. Can you guys see this page I just brought up?
Didn't bring it up.
No, not yet.
All right, so let me do this and do it this way. Got that?
Yep.
Okay. So I did a little calling around. I called Putnam because I seemed to recall that they had a tree warden. They don't, but they do use a Yukon guidebook. And I looked at the Yukon guidebook and it's fantastic. It's much better than anything any of us will ever write. With that information, I am proposing that we don't need Appendix E anymore if we use this. 1, where new streets are proposed as part of a subdivision plan, the inclusion of street trees in the plan is desirable. Street trees have been shown to have many environmental, ecological, and economic benefits, including but not limited to reduced traffic speeds, improved absorption of stormwater, reduced CO2 emissions, and improved property values. 2, to that end, the commission may require that street may require that street trees be planted where new roads are proposed in a subdivision plan. 3, while non-native species are not strictly prohibited, the town has a strong preference for the use of species native to the region as street trees. Benefits of landscaping with native species include general suitability and tolerance for local growing conditions and higher habitat value for native and migratory insects, birds, and mammals. Developers are referred to the Thompson Conservation Commission for advice on suitable native species for inclusion in the plan. 4, species from the most current Connecticut invasive species list, which is linked there, compiled by the Connecticut Invasive Plant Council, are prohibited. And 5, developers shall follow the guidelines articulated in the Urban Tree Selection Manual, a publication of the University of Connecticut College of Agriculture and Natural Resources. In particular, developers are referred to Section 4, selection by situation, Section 5, fact sheets pertaining to particular species, and Section 6, other information pertaining to species to avoid, as well as species suited to particular conditions. And just to give you a little more context, I'm just going to show you the PDF of the Urban Tree Manual.
Is there any specific edition of that particular manual?
No, it's just a publication. So here it is, and it's a 120-page manual. They've covered it, but it does have some really good stuff in here. So let me just go to page 17, for example. It's got the diagrams.
Oh, nice.
You know, it's very thorough. Space between buildings and curbs, selection by, you know, if it's this close to the road, you can do this. If it's right, possible options for area with typical overhead wires. There's no way we could ever get that kind of detail in one of our documents. I think this simpler alternate text that I worked up today is less specifically prescriptive, which I think is some of the stuff that Jane objected to. It clearly articulates that if you're planning for new streets, you should plan for trees on those streets for the reasons stated: reduction of traffic speeds, stormwater infiltration, all the property values go up.
I'm sorry, can you pull that language up again, please? Sorry.
The alternate language?
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you.
Got it?
It will be up to the town to maintain them.
Not if it's on a private street. But yes, you are correct, Jane. If it was a public street, like any other public landscaping, if the town accepted the street, it would accept the trees.
So you're saying that in a non-public street, you're requiring them to put trees in?
Well, number 2 specifically says that the commission may require it. So,
Okay.
you know, it's essentially leaving the option to the commission,
Okay,
but making clear to a developer that we want to see this kind of thought put into the plan. And, you know, what, as I was thinking about it, I don't know where I was driving around in town. Must be a relatively recent development where everything was very flat and there was like not a tree to be seen. It was really weird and out of character for the town.
no, but usually people that move into a development end up planting trees themselves and pick, you know, and do it that way. I just have a problem with that.
Well, on the private property, there is no require, you know, the individual lot, right? You can have or not have a tree as you like. Some people plant and some people don't. There is the commission would take no role in people's private landscaping. This is just the addition of the benefit to the streetscape.
I do like this. I like the way this is, the description of this, the wording, and it seems a little bit long, but if you look back at the way it's presented about maintaining the trees, and it just seems like we're getting into the nuts and bolts of, being tree wardens ourselves and approving plans and telling people what to do with trees. So I like this better. It's less descriptive, but still gives us the ability to impose what our intent would be based on what the subdivision looks like. So that's my input.
I agree with Dave on that. And it seems a little less restrictive.
But I like the idea.
Dave.
We got references here too.
Well, we always had the reference to the invasive species list, but the reference I had in the current Appendix E, I can't believe I hadn't found this urban tree selection manual before, quite frankly. I link in the existing Appendix E, which I will strike based on this, if we take this piece, because I think it's redundant, it's like a search engine to find trees with certain characteristics, much more unwieldy. I think this is a much cleaner, less prescriptive, because I did hear, some of the objections that Jane, I think in particular, had, about dictating species. So as long as they're not using invasives, have at it, guys.
So the section that this is in, Tara, it references private and public streets, right?
No, this just says where new streets are proposed. I'm not actually drawing a distinction here between private and public streets. What I am doing is I'm giving the commission latitude to choose to require or not.
Yeah, no, I get that. I'm just talking about in.
You mean where
if
it
you
is
go
in the
back to
document itself?
Yes.
Okay.
Here,
Yeah.
on 4 and 5, number 5 mentions manual. Should we do the same thing in number 4?
Well, because that's not a manual.
Oh, okay.
That's
Okay.
that's literally just a list
A list. Yeah.
maintained by that organization. It's an online list, but yeah, it's not a document with pages.
Right. Okay.
So that's just here, Dave, and it follows sidewalks, right? So you've got your stuff
Yeah.
on. your
Yeah,
shared
so it's just
drive.
in general.
Yeah.
In general topics in subdivisions. Yeah, no, okay. I just wanted to double check with that. Thanks, Theora.
Okay. So do you guys generally agree to use the alternate text, strike Appendix E and replace what we see here under P?
I agree.
Yeah, thank you,
Right.
Chair.
I agree.
Yeah, I think so too.
So do I.
All right, we are closing in on the end here, making good time.
I disagree. Sorry, I
Oh.
had to do that. I'm only kidding. Sorry, my bad.
He's-
My bad.
he's
Move on.
overruled. Overruled. Tiara, I think we have someone. Kevin, did you join? I just want to acknowledge you if that's Kevin. I saw a phone number is in the meeting.
Oh. 508-864-8432. Who's that? Hello.
Okay, maybe not Kevin. I wanted to introduce him if it was him. So sorry, I just saw the number when you came out of screen share.
Okay. Whoever you are, feel free to identify yourself at any point, just so we know who. Okay. Because maybe it is Kevin. Maybe he's just listening. Oh, that's a note for the lawyer. Okay, that's. That was nothing. So I'm going down to bonding now, because all this stuff on stormwater and erosion, we took that stuff direct from Marla. That's her wheelhouse. She's gone over it twice and did not come up with a third round of comments. So I think we're good there. Here we go, bonding. So Marla had asked me to check with the finance office. She was concerned about the commission accepting surety bonds. Now, I did point out that you guys already voted specifically to allow surety bonds as an allowable form of bonding. So I just want to clarify that I did go upstairs to the finance office and I talked to Paula and Guy and asked if there was anything in a surety bond that left the town more exposed than in a cash bond or any other kind of passbook savings bond like they used in the past. And their consensus was that it did not. But I promised I would bring it up to you guys. And I will lean here again on our construction guru, Mr. Santos, and his experience with bonding.
Yeah, actually, there's everything that I do is with surety bonds. The only thing is there are fake surety bonds out there. Usually my agent reviews those, or we could just have a lawyer look at it real quick, but that's a pretty big offense to be creating such a fake document. So I don't mean to scare anybody, but usually they're pretty sound.
Yeah, and
I'll agree. I mean, the difference, and I know we talked about this in depth, Brian, we went through this section, but just so everyone knows, cash bond, the developer puts up all the cash. So it may be restrictive to someone who has to put up a bond. Surety bond is through a bonding company where it's a bond is presented to the town from a surety company on behalf of the developer or, the person who we require the bond from, and it's in their name and they do not tie up their cash as in a cash bond. So two bonds, two different names accomplish the same thing. Some developers have a means to do a cash bond, some do not, and they would be tying up their cash so they commit to a cash bond. So that's the difference, so everyone knows. And I know we had a long discussion and we thought surety was the way to go. I'm surprised she called it out, but.
well, Marla as an individual tends to be highly cautious, right? Highly small c conservative in what she prefers. But she repeated that concern to me a couple of times. So I promised I would bring it up. I promised I would run it by the finance office. Guy and Paula more or less repeated exactly what you just said, and almost in exactly the same format. I will add that, as you just alluded to, Dave, if you're restricting yourself to cash bonds, what you are restricting yourself to is huge scale developers who have cash on hand. So you're cutting guys essentially at the local and regional level out for the most part, right? Because they're not going to have cash on hand like that just floating around.
That is correct.
Yep, I totally agree. I mean, I'm not even, I guess I could be swayed to list it as a cash or surety, but I don't even think we have to go that far. We just name it as a surety, and any small developer to a, multi-phase national developer is aware of a surety bond. So it's in their benefit. I think it's in the town's benefit too, because we have an insurance company, we're not managing a cash bond at that point, which is preferable to have a surety.
Agreed.
Is that, John Rice, is that surety bond approved by the financial director?
That's an excellent question. I don't know that we refer to that at all. Let's go back. Financial guarantee. Let's see what we have here. So here are your 4 forms of financial guarantee: a pledge of savings account, which is a passbook savings,
Yeah.
cash deposit, a letter of credit from a federally insured banking institution, or a surety bond in a form satisfactory to the town of it. So it does not refer reading this quickly to the finance director at all? I mean, I could make that surety bond in a form satisfactory to the finance director of the town of Thompson. That's not a difficult edit.
Well, based on what David said about the, falsification of bonds, it wouldn't hurt for him to look at it and make sure, check it.
Yeah, I agree. We don't want any SVB bonds or surety bonds coming down.
Hey, guys, just so you know, I think that's a sore spot for Mr. Santos.
Yeah, as a source. Yeah. But just so you know, when you get like Acadia bond or what have you, whatever agency that they submit on, essentially all you need to do is call Acadia and they ask you for the routing number, and then they tell you whether or not it's legit or not. So it's a pretty easy check. Unless you get some like, I don't know, out of the country bank, then it becomes a little bit of a problem. But that's usually a red flag right out of the gate.
But
I'd
that's,
be
that's something
fascinated.
the finance director can do in 10 minutes probably, right?
That's correct. Yeah, any one of my point was any one of us could do it, but it's good to add the finance director, John.
That's it.
It's fine.
I'd be fascinated to see a bond drawn on an international bank come through Thompson. Cayman Islands, perhaps.
John,
It's going to be a pretty big deal if it is.
Making sure the bond has nothing to do with China.
Okay, so I just wanted to call it, since we discussed moving the stuff about as-built to the section on release of surety. I just want to make sure this flow is correct while it's not top of mind. The surety shall not be released until the following conditions have been met. 1, all improvements of the subdivision or re-subdivision have been approved and or accepted by the designated town official. 2, all required monuments or markers shall have been set, and a sworn affidavit filed by the land surveyor stating that all boundaries have been marked as required by these regulations. 3, the developer shall present as-built plans meeting the standards of Article 3, Section 3, A through D of these regulations, showing all subdivision improvements as constructed, also showing clearly where the as-built plans differ from the approved subdivision plans. In the event that there is no difference between the approved subdivision plans and the as-built plans, the developer's land surveyor and or engineer may update, sign, and seal the Mylars of the approved subdivision plan. 4, the engineer or land surveyor has certified to the commission through submission of detailed, signed, and sealed as-built plans and the as-built certification form in Appendix H that the improvements are in accordance with the construction plans of the subdivision or re-subdivision. 5, a warranty deed for new streets and street stubs, also road frontage along existing town roads where no street line has been established, shall have been executed and delivered to the selectmen with a copy of to the commission. Title to said road shall be unencumbered. 6, the developer shall file a written statement executed by the owner of the property and the developer in a form approved by the town attorney. Well, I guess we have to make that town council now. Council, which permits the town of Thompson or its officials and employees or independent contractors to enter upon the property and to perform any and all work necessary to correct and abate any violations of these regulations or any failure by the developer to complete the actions of the approved subdivision plan recorded with the Thompson Town Clerk within the approved time. Such right of entry shall be pursued upon the certification of such violations by the commission and shall continue for such time thereafter as is required for the town to remedy such default. 7, any and all bonds with surety agreements, deeds, or other such documents required by these regulations shall be in such form as may be approved by town council. And 8, the developer shall be required to file a maintenance bond prior to dedication to the town of any public improvements in order to assure the satisfactory condition of the completed improvements. The standards for the maintenance bond are described in Article 4, Section 9 below. Does that seem like the correct flow?
I think so.
Sounded really good.
The only thing, Tara, on 5,
Mhm.
I think that So warranty deed for new streets, street stubs, should we include, and Brian, this may be, I might be going over my head with this. Common drives, should we describe common drives and specifically private subdivisions, not just new streets?
I'm not sure I follow you, Dave, but I read this number 5 as being stuff dedicated to the public. But maybe I'm wrong.
I'm thinking over here.
Think we got exposure there for some reason. I can't put my finger on it, but if we grant, I guess this is to release the bond, right? So
Right.
let's think so release the bond. So everything that they would have posted a bond for, we should be getting a warranty deed for. That covers the town. Should there be a property line dispute? Should there, like, property line disputes? I mean, that's a warranty deed, right? So maybe we don't answer it here, Tara, maybe take a look at that, but I think that should be investigated a little bit deeper, just so we don't have exposure there. And I hate to release a bond if we don't have a warranty deed for some sort of a property exposure for a property line dispute.
Yeah, so that's why I've dropped this note in here. And just for clarification for everybody, as soon as I make all of my changes based on this and all the inline edits, which is going to take up a good deal of my time tomorrow, I want to have that done tomorrow so I can send it right to Rich so that I can have a chance of having his comments back and have it adjusted before Monday's meeting. It's not critical that that be the case, but I would like to have the draft that I post after you guys accept for public hearing on Monday to be as close to the final form as possible. And that would obviously include Rich's comments and suggestions.
This one, number 5 there, a little bit more. Where did this come from? This verbiage?
I'm gonna guess this came from the existing. I certainly did not write this myself.
Yeah, no, I'm just, I'm tending to agree that the warranty deed is for public sidewalks, streets, and things of that nature, because the warranty deed says if someone gets hurt on that public street, they cannot come after the town. They can only go after the developer. And if they do come after the town, the developer has to represent us in that legal matter. So,
Brian, I thought a warranty deed was property line disputes.
well, I am not sure about that because the warranty deed, I'm looking at it online right now. It says the grantor promises the grantee that the grantor will defend him or her from any claims that arise from third parties. I guess there could be a claim against a survey point, but
Yeah, I just looked up a quick definition. A warranty deed is a type of deed where the grantor guarantees that they hold clear title to a piece of real estate and has a right to sell it to the buyer, in
Yeah.
contrast to a quitclaim deed. A general warranty deed protects the grantee against the defects arising at any point in time extending back to the property's origins.
Yeah. I think number 5, ask Roberts about what this is about, because this paragraph, it confuses me. Is it about, streets and public access and people falling and personal injury, or is it about, like Dave just said, is it about the deeded lines on a piece of paper? So I think 5 needs to be looked at
Yeah,
closer.
I doubt if that goes into public, somebody getting hurt and suing. If the town has the deed for the property, the warranty deed, seems to me that the liability goes with it.
Yeah, I mean,
I would agree.
everything
I agree.
I've bought was, any property I've purchased, I always get the warranty deed just for property line of butters. So if there's a property line dispute, I'm covered under the warranty deed.
Yep, that sounds all right.
So what do we think I'm doing with this other than running it by Rich? Just running it by Rich.
Well, I
Yeah.
think, does it read right though? I don't know if this reads properly. I mean, also road frontage along existing town roads, no street line had been established. It's talking about lines that weren't established before. I don't know. I feel like the verbiage needs to be looked at somebody at a higher pay scale than me.
That person would be our attorney.
I'd question if this
I'm not sure if that pay scale exists.
Thanks, John.
I'll just kick the bee's nest. I'm sure that this isn't part of, we haven't done this to release a deed before. To release a bond before.
Release the bond.
Yeah, I would be,
I feel very confident that this is carryover language. I definitely did not write this myself.
yeah, it's probably never been followed before.
Yeah,
All right.
let's just
I've
rewrite.
already flagged it for Rich's attention, and I'm getting the sense that we cannot answer that right now.
Yep.
Okay.
There's Attorney Roberts right now. Just kidding. The rest of the section I'm good with.
Okay. All right. So
That was beautiful, Dave. I like that. That was Attorney Roberts. No. First
That
time
would've been
caller, lifelong listener. I'm calling in.
Okay, appendices. As I already called out, I'm going to reorder them so they follow the flow. The Appendix A is actually going to become the stuff on road construction because it's referenced in the definitions, which I didn't catch before. So worry not about the flow. For right now, Appendix A, table of fees. These are the only fees, these 4 in front of you, which are related to this document. All of the other fees, which we carried over wholesale from the zoning regulations, are non-applicable. So unless you feel some compelling need why we're repeating fees that are not referenced in the document to reference our zoning fees, I'm gonna recommend that this is your only table of fees in this document. Any objections?
No, nope.
Right. Okay, so this was a letter to abutters, simple. Marla had some questions about cul-de-sacs and the road design. She asks the following 2 questions. Should there be a limit to the number of driveway cuts in a cul-de-sac? And if there is no island, where can the snow be plowed to? The answer to the first one is fairly simple in that you're already limiting cul-de-sacs to 20 lots maximum. Therefore, the maximum number of driveway cuts is also 20, and you may have fewer if people are proposing shared drives. So that is sort of a built-in answer. Now, the other has to do with that snow turnout stuff. And I haven't done the adapted language yet, but you definitely included some for long shared drives over 500 feet. So I'm just going to propose that I adapt that language for snow storage areas and drop it in to this list of requirements for cul-de-sacs. Anybody have any problem with that?
Mhm.
And in fact, where I will actually put that is under no outlet roads general, because I presume that would also apply to a loop road, which is a different kind of no outlet road. Okay, so the only other thing that you guys haven't seen at all, because I forgot to show it to you the last time we talked, was the maintenance and liability agreement that Rich forwarded to me. He actually forwarded me two, Janet forwarded me one. This was the best of the three in that it was the best one to use as a template. The others were clearly customized and very difficult to reverse engineer. So I don't know why the formatting is so messed up, but I mean, you can see it is a document, a lot of fill in the blanks. This declaration made, date on, having an address of. So let's get into the significant text. Whereas declarant does not desire to service the burdened lots as shown on the aforementioned map by separate driveways, but rather to establish a mutual easement arrangement which will service the easement properties and which will provide ingress and egress to and from them, and provide a location for installation of utilities to service the easement properties or any of the aforementioned lots individually. And whereas declarant desires to establish this declaration of easement to create an easement on, over, under, and through the easement area for the benefit of the easement properties. And whereas declarant further desires to impose certain covenants and restrictions upon the use, operation, and maintenance of the easement area. Whereas the burden lots are specifically made part of this agreement, and the owners of the burden lots shall receive the benefits and be subject to the burdens contained therein. And whereas the easement properties have been approved by the Thompson Planning and Zoning Commission as part of a subdivision pursuant to the Thompson Subdivision Regulations. Now, therefore, declarant hereby submits the easement area to the terms, covenants, restrictions, and easements set forth herein for the benefit of the easement properties as follows. Grant of easement. Declarant hereby grants and declares to the extent described herein for the benefit of the easement properties an easement and right of way over and upon the easement area, which easement shall be appurtenant to and for the benefit of the easement properties and may be used by the owners of the easement properties, their heirs, successors, assigns, licensees, and guests. The easement area shall be used for the purposes of ingress and egress to and from subject properties by vehicular and pedestrian traffic and for the installation, maintenance, repair, and replacement of utility lines, including lines for stormwater discharge, electric, cable, telephone, sewer, water, and other residential utilities, together with any appurtenances related thereto, hereinafter referred to as utilities, in order to furnish utility services to the easement properties and designated as, that's the name of the property, I guess. The owners of the easement properties hereinafter collectively referred to as owners and individually referred to as owner shall have the right in common with the other owners to enter on, over, under, and through the easement area for the purpose of construction, installation, maintenance, repair, and replacement of the driveway and of utilities, provided, however, that any owner or owners who shall do any work or have any work done affecting the easement area upon completion of the work shall repair that portion of the easement area to the condition that existed prior to such owner's entry, except for any work done pursuant to the rights created herein, and shall at times keep so much of the easement area open so that vehicular and pedestrian traffic shall have reasonable access. When utilizing the easement area, the owner shall do so as expeditiously as possible and in such manner as will cause the least possible disturbance to the other owners. The owners of the burdened lots may continue to use the easement area in any way that will not prevent the use of the easement area for the purposes described herein. The owners of the burdened lots shall not erect or allow any structures to be erected on the easement area, nor shall they plant or allow to be planted or grown any large trees or any other obstructions which would prevent the use of the easement area by the owners. Nothing contained in this paragraph shall diminish the rights and obligations of the owners of the burdened lots which are established in this declaration. The owners shall maintain the easement area in its present condition or in the condition to which it is improved from time to time, free and clear of obstruction, shall repair the same as necessary, shall keep the same reasonably free of clear of ice and snow, and shall keep the easement area insured with respect to liability. The cost of all necessary repairs, maintenance, snow and ice removal, clearing of the driveway and insurance thereon shall be paid equally by the owners. Each owner shall be responsible for an equal fraction share of such cost, a required share. Notwithstanding the foregoing, no owner shall be responsible for any expenses hereunder until a building permit has been obtained from the town of Thompson to construct a building upon his lot. Therefore, when computing an owner's required share hereunder, the lots for which no building permit has been issued shall not be included in the number of lots served by the driveway over the easement area. The cost of maintenance, repair, and replacement of utilities within the easement area shall be borne by the specific owner or owners whose individual lot or lots is or are benefited by such utilities. And if more than one owner is benefited, then such costs shall be borne on an equal basis. Once utilities are installed in the easement area, then any of the owners shall have the right to tie into the utilities, provided that they shall do so in a good and proper manner without damage to the utilities. The cost of the original installation of utilities shall be paid by the owner desiring said installation. The obligations created in this paragraph deal with maintenance, repair, and replacement. And it goes on. I mean, it's pretty, I will continue to read if you like, but no, it's not so much. The construction material utilized in the driveway shall not be changed unless a majority of the owners agree to install a different surface, provided no such change shall be permitted that would violate any land use permit issued by the town of Thompson, and any such change shall conform to the requirements of any governmental authority. The rest of this paragraph notwithstanding, any owner who shall, through negligence or willful action, cause any damage which must be repaired hereunder, shall be responsible for the cost incurred to provide the repairs, maintenance, and replacement necessitated by the negligence or willful action of that owner, provided, however, that the declarant and all subsequent owners mutually waive their respective rights of recovery against each other for any loss insured by fire, extended coverage, and other property insurance policies existing for the benefit of the respective parties. The cost for repairing, replacing, maintaining, or improving the easement area pursuant to this agreement shall be shared as set forth above. Except as herein provided, no cost of any kind shall be charged to any owner unless that owner has agreed in writing to pay said costs. In the event that the owner of any lot shall decide that expenditures shall be incurred for repair and replacing, maintaining, or improving the easement area, then said owner shall send written notice to the other owners, which shall request that the other owners agree to pay their required share of the cost of such repair, replacement, maintenance, or improvement in the event that the other owners agree to pay their required shares in writing, then the cost shall be shared accordingly. In the event that one or more of the other owners do not agree in writing to pay their required share, then the owner proposing said activity and any owners who agree to pay their required share may undertake said activity solely at their own cost and expense. In that event, after the work is completed, the owner or owners performing the work may institute legal action against the other owners who did not contribute to the cost of such activity. In the event that a court should issue a final non-appealable ruling that the work was necessary to maintain the easement area to the standard required hereunder, and if the work was done to the quality required, then the owners who should have shared said cost shall be responsible for their required shares of the cost, and the owner or owners who performed the work shall be entitled to be reimbursed by the other owners, not only for their required share, but also for the expenses incurred in said collection, including a reasonable attorney's fee, if a court action is instituted. All repairs, replacement, maintenance, or improvements made to the easement area shall be made to a quality suitable to accomplish the purposes for which the easement area has been created. The easement created herein shall be a permanent easement and shall bind the declarant, all subsequent owners, their heirs, successors, and assigns. And then interest, grant, and reservation. I mean, I read this and I thought this was a pretty tidy little document.
I don't know about little, but
Tara, there was not to nitpick, but further up, I think it was like on page 72 or 73. I think it said vehicular and pedestrian.
I did see that too. Let me find it.
If somebody has a big enough piece of property and they own horses, should there be equine put in there? Like, just to cover for the agricultural part?
I think that's here. The easement area shall be used for the purposes of ingress and egress to and from subject properties by vehicular and pedestrian traffic.
It doesn't cover nothing if somebody had, was going across, like I said, it could be nitpicking, but just
Right.
something that stood out on me. There was 2 spots that said that.
The vehicular and pedestrian traffic.
I'm not sure if somebody riding a horse would be pedestrian traffic, or just, like I said, it could be just nitpicking, but it did jump out.
I'm just trying to think how to phrase this. Vehicular and pedestrian traffic or any. Seems a little clunky, but the easement area should be used for the purposes of ingress and egress to and from the subject properties by vehicular and pedestrian traffic or any non-vehicular form of traffic, including equestrian or cycling.
Like I said, it could be nitpicking, but you never know what somebody's gonna come up with,
Sure.
I know there was 2 spots that said that. There was another spot, I think, further, either above or further down, that said the same thing.
okay, being devil's advocate, suppose some people that decide to race 4-wheelers up and down the road, that road or whatever. That shouldn't be, well, I don't know how to, I was just making a point.
Yeah, that might be a bridge too far for a lot of folks. But maybe not. Or how about any?
It was your cycling is what triggered that in my mind.
Yeah.
I mean, is it just for the purposes of an ingress and egress?
Yeah. I mean, it is for an ingress and egress, but.
But what I'm saying is, like, do we need to list any by? Right, when you start listing modes of ingress and egress, you start automatically eliminating modes of ingress and egress.
So, yeah, I see what you're saying. So let me try this. Vehicular, non-vehicular, and pedestrian traffic.
There you go.
Yeah.
There we go. Oh, here's the other spot. I see it. Got it. Of the three that I looked at, this was by far the best. The one Janet sent me was actually a scanned photocopy that she got from somebody in Woodstock that was almost unreadable. I'm sure it was legally binding. I don't know, everybody sort of comfortable with what they read here?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty extensive. Just let Rich look at it. That's good with me.
Well, he's the one who gave it to me. So he's already looked at it. He was probably the
Okey-dokey.
lawyer who drew it up.
There you go. There you go.
With the exception of killing 2 more trees, I think I haven't got anything to add.
Okay.
Tara,
Well, we're gonna save a tree by taking out Appendix F.
Okay,
Tara, at the top of that document, it says 2017. You might want to leave that blank, 20 some blank.
Did it?
Yeah.
yeah, I saw that too.
Ah,
This day of, yeah.
good catch. Those are good eyes, guys. I think that's everything I had. Almost 9 o'clock on the nose. Anybody want to look at anything else before we wrap this?
You sound like the Board of Finance, 9 o'clock, it's time to go home.
Except I won't cut it off if you guys still want to talk. I promise.
Can we start from the beginning? Just a thought.
Article 1, general provision.
Yeah,
Tara, to the best of your knowledge, all of Marla's requests have been reviewed tonight and have been addressed.
All of Marla's requests that have to do with the actual substance, in other words, the intent of the commission, I believe have been addressed. She
Okay.
made a ton of comments about specifics of language, grammar, formatting. I'm not going to burden you guys with those. I have a huge red line with that. And
Thank you.
she and I discussed that, and we also agreed that what you guys needed to look at was what genuinely affects your intent. And I'm pretty sure I got all that.
And I just want to call it out to, that I appreciate you working with her. I know she was very vocal and criticized the commission, not necessarily intentionally, but so I do appreciate what you did to incorporate all of her concerns, and just want to, make note of that for everyone that, as a commission, we all have held Marla's concerns to the forefront of all of our reviews of this, and we appreciate her work, and thank you, Tara, for working with her and bringing her valuable input to this as well.
Well said. I agree, David.
Same here. Thank you, David.
All right, so just in these final moments, just again to repeat the plan, tomorrow, I'm going to make all of the changes that are the red line, inlines, anything that we made notes about tonight, anything we agreed on. As soon as I have that done, I'm sending it over to Rich. I'm going to ask him to get me his comments by Monday morning. If any of Rich's comments affect the intent of what you guys decided today, I will just call that out when before we accept it for public hearing, just so that you know what those things are. And then as soon as it is accepted for public hearing, I will publish the draft for public comment That public comment period will be open until the regular meeting in April, which is when the public hearing should be. And any comments that are received, as always, I will read into the record as part of the public hearing. And then, fingers crossed, we will have an accepted document as of the April regular meeting. I think that my read is that you guys feel ready. I think you have gone over this very thoroughly. Obviously, in that public comment period, that includes your comments. If you notice something, just send it to me. Anything that we missed, that's fine. At this point, I would assume that any of those comments would be fairly minor, but if they're not, then that's fine. We'll take them as they come. Everybody good?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
Tara, Kevin didn't join, right? Before, I just want to be before, I do want to introduce him if he did join. I don't want to.
Well, I see when somebody comes in, I get a little notice that they're waiting and then I admit them. So if it's
Okay.
got a name, I see who it is. So the only unknown is that 508 number who did
Okay.
not identify himself or herself. So
And I don't mean to call out the 508 number. I just want to be courteous to Kevin because I know he had an intention of joining, and I did want to give him the introduction and to the members. So that not calling anyone out specifically at that 508 number, but thank you.
So everybody be nice to him on Monday. It's his first time.
Thank you, everyone. I think this was really thoughtful work again tonight, as it has been throughout this process. And if there are no other questions or comments, I would move to agenda item 4 and entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Santos, seconded by Mr. Blackmer. All those in favor?
Right.
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned at 8:57 PM. Thanks, everyone.
Good night,
night.
everybody.
Good night.
Alvin and Brian will coordinate about carpooling for Saturday.
Yep. For sure.
Brian, what time is Krispy Kreme tomorrow?
Well, picking them all up and then I'll come over to your house at some point in the night there, pal. Same
Give me
thing
a
with
call.
you, Joe.